Hello YouTube, so in this video I'm gonna compare the Sony ZV-1 versus the iPhone 11 Pro Max with a key focus on vlogging. My goal is to help you decide if the Sony ZV-1 is the right choice for you. And by the way, I've got so many more videos on the Sony ZV-1, so I invite you to check my playlist. And please consider subscribing if you're interested in that great content creation device. But enough said, now let's check the samples. Okay, I thought it would be a good idea to start with the front-facing camera, which is unarguably the better option to vlog on the iPhone or on any other smartphones because you can see and frame yourself. But before we go into more details, I wanted to show you the setup. So basically they're both as you would use them out of the box. I'm just using a tripod to make it easier to hold those two devices, as you can see here and there, and that's it. In terms of audio, it's what you get out of the box on the iPhone, and same on the Sony ZV-1. I'm using the wind muff and the sound is set at 25. Of course, please bear in mind that the footage you're going to see today is not the most cinematic you can get from either of those cameras. Indeed, you could be using like an app like Filmic Pro, for instance, to configure everything, to make sure you've got the shallower depth of field possible. You've got your shutter speed at 1/48th or 1/50th of a second. And same with the Sony ZV-1. The problem here is too bright, so even the built-in ND filter on the ZV-1 is not strong enough to really do a great job keeping up at 1.8 and 1/50th of a second. For this reason, I'm using it in auto movie mode, so on the Sony ZV-1. But if you're interested in a more cinematic shoot from the iPhone 11 Pro and the Sony ZV-1, please give me a big thumbs up right now and leave a comment below. I'll try to do something, again, a bit higher production value in the future. What I wanted to try here is, of course, the overall picture quality. I still think that the front-facing camera, even more convenient on the iPhone, doesn't yield the best quality, so I would encourage you to try recording yourself with the rear camera, which is a problem because you can't see yourself, by the way. And I wanted to check the stabilization. On the Sony ZV-1, we're on active because there's no point going standard or switching it off. That is, if you do a walking vlog, right? Because if you sit down, if you don't move too much on your vlogs, then the Sony ZV-1 becomes a bit more usable in terms of field of view. That is, if you deactivate stabilization. And that's also when a camera like the A6400 or the A6100 could be a great option. But if you like walking, when you do your vlogs, and I'm not a vlogger by the way, this is the type of experience you can expect from both cameras. We can see on the ZV-1 that it tracks my eye very well. You can also see that trying to expose it as well as possible, it blows out the highlights and here the sky. On the iPhone 11 Pro, the HDR mode is on by default, and as you can see, it does a much better job to evenly expose the picture. The other difference, of course, is the field of view on the ZV-1 4K 24 with active stabilization. As you can see, it's much narrower. But if I was using it at 1.8, we are at 3.2 right now, you would see a much nicer blurry background that you could ever see on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, especially from the front-facing camera, which is not autofocus enabled. Okay, just a little bit more walking before we switch to the rear camera on the iPhone 11 Pro. Okay, and now we are shooting from the rear camera on the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So can you see the difference already in terms of picture quality? One of the challenges is that I can't see the screen, so I'm hoping it's recording well. Let's check it out. Yes, it is. So as I mentioned, one of the biggest issues with the iPhone 11 Pro as a video creation device is the fact that if you want to leverage the best cameras, you can't see the screen. So you just have to assume that you'll be in the frame, but it's not as convenient, of course, as having a flip-up screen. Okay, and now let's test the stabilization. Again, we are a 4K 24 active stab on the Sony ZV-1, and this is just, the standard camera app on the iPhone, so which should be a good job stabilizing the footage. I'm not working like a ninja. Again, I'm in Kensington Gardens in London, and it's pretty bumpy here. Loads of potholes as well, so I'm just trying not to break my ankle. I won't run because I can't see why you would run and you would use one of those cameras to shoot something focused on pure action. That doesn't make sense to me. I would be too worried to break, especially the Sony ZV-1, but also my iPhone 11 Pro Max. Okay, now I'd like to switch the Sony ZV-1 to aperture priority mode at 1.8 and to see how well the camera is dealing with the changes of exposure and is ramping up the shutter speed. So let's check that in a second. Okay, now I'm in aperture priority mode on the Sony ZV-1, which means that we are shooting at 1.8. Whatever happens, however bright the sun or the sky is, it's still gonna keep shooting at 1.8, which means that if it gets very bright, the shutter speed will go up the roof. And please bear in mind that I'm using the built-in ND filter in the Sony ZV-1. But as I mentioned in a previous video, it's not enough. Actually, it's quite weak, so it's great to have them, but it's not good enough to save your footage or your cinematic footage if it's super bright outside. That's when you would be using an external solution like the one I described in my wide-angle filter adapter video on YouTube, so please check it out. So tell me what you think of the stabilization. Again, pretty bumpy here. And again, I look like a fool, but this time I look like a fool at 1.8 on the Sony ZV-1. That must be worth something, right? And now it's brighter. Let's check the ZV-1. The face auto exposure is pretty good, I feel. Again, it's not perfect because it blows out the highlights, but I still think that it's very helpful if you transition very quickly from a very dark environment to a very bright one. Whereas on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, it should be business as usual. It should do a good job exposing everything anyway, so you might see that as a plus. Let's try something different now. Let's switch to the wide-angle lens on the iPhone 11 Pro. In 1, 2, 3. Okay, what do you think now? The beauty again of a high-end smartphone like the iPhone 11 Pro Max, it's the flexibility it offers with its set of various field of views and lenses. So here, as you can see, I can even go closer. Now my arms are against my body, so much easier to hold those cameras. And as you can see, it fits like so much more in the frame than a camera like the Sony ZV-1. One of the downsides of the super wide angle lens on a smartphone like the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max is that there's no autofocus in it. So pretty much everything should be in focus, which arguably is not a big issue because I guess you want to fit as much as possible in the frame. So that's a bonus that you can't get on the Sony ZV-1. You could still check my video whereby I adapt a wide-angle lens, which works, but it's not like even 2/3 of the field of view you would get with the iPhone 11 Pro Max on super wide-angle mode. Okay, so stabilization with the super wide-angle. And let's go in the dark. Tell me if you'd be interested in a low light test, because that's where and when as well the Sony ZV-1 will shine. Indeed, like photos could look very good on a smartphone like the iPhone 11 Pro, even in low light. But in terms of videos, usually that's when everything crumbles and the quality degrades pretty quickly for any high-end smartphones, at least in mid-2020. And now we're back in standard angle lens with the iPhone 11 Pro. So tell me what you think again. With a tree. Now I'll try to show you something cool. It's the autofocus of the Sony. So it's striking my eye. Still tracking my eye here. Oh, maybe you missed it now. My eye. Yes. Tracking my eye. Still tracking my eye right here. Oh, missed it. It's pretty reliable and very sticky. Tracking my eye. I really think it's a brilliant little camera, by the way. Maybe not the best ever for vlogging, but super reliable. Okay, so now let's assume that you noticed something interesting and you would like to zoom just to give your audience a better view of what it is. So now I'm going to switch to the 2x zoom on the iPhone 11 Pro and the 70mm on the ZV-1. Again in 1, 2, 3. So this is the type of footage you would get on the ZV-1 versus the iPhone 11. Please bear in mind that you could zoom even more on both devices, but I feel like the quality deteriorates pretty quickly on the iPhone with the digital zoom. Whereas on the Sony ZV-1, you could also go much longer using the clear zoom functionality. Again, it's not perfect, it will deteriorate your footage a bit, but it's going to be much better than the iPhones for sure. You can see the shadow depth of field here, even though we're at the widest aperture of 2.8, it's still working pretty well and producing some cinematic footage on the Sony ZV-1. Okay, now two other tests. So this time on the Sony ZV-1, it's at 1/50th of a second in 1.8, wide open, as you can see. Not quite the same quality as the iPhone because it's too bright outside. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to change the settings on the ZV-1 by iPhone. I'm going to first of all put the ND filter on, and this is what I get. It's better now, but again here the issue is that when you change a new environments and you go, for instance, somewhere darker, then the exposure compensation will mess things up. So that's why you need whether a stronger ND filter or you need to ramp up your aperture and or your shutter speed. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go onto shutter speed priority at 50th of a second to have the nice blurry natural motion. Okay, and now I'm in shutter priority on the Sony ZV-1. I'm at 1/50th of a second because I'm shooting in 24p, and now that should produce the best picture quality out of the box. And again, you've got the slow natural motion blur. So please note that because I'm in shutter priority mode, my ISO now it's at 160 because it's very bright, which is normal, but my aperture is not 1.8 anymore, it's at 3.2. And now let's test the stabilization. On the iPhone, we're on the front-facing camera, just again to give you an idea of the difference in picture quality. I'm at f4. Okay, and now, so it's the rear-facing camera on the iPhone, and on the Sony ZV-1, still shutter priority at 1/50th of a second for smooth, natural blurred motion. Now we're still at 3.5 aperture and we are ISO still 160. And there you have it. So first of all, thank you again for watching. It was quite fun to shoot. I really hope that it gave you a good opportunity to be the judge of the vlogging qualities of the Sony ZV-1 versus the iPhone 11 Pro. So if you like it, please give me a big thumbs up. That would help me a lot. I also invite you to subscribe and click the notification bell. Why would you subscribe? Because I'm producing a ton of content for the Sony ZV-1. My goals being to help you make a purchase decision and also to help you make the most of your Sony ZV-1. And finally, I invite you to share your questions and your suggestions in the comment section below. I will be answering everything, bar some very abusive language down there. And I might also incorporate some of those questions in a future video on the Sony ZV-1. But anyway, again, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys!